we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
Violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. They are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Greetings, fellow thought criminals, and thank you for joining the insurrection. I'm Michael Lauber, and today I'm joined by Kelly Walker from Freedom Talk Magazine. How are you doing this morning, Kelly?
Hey, Michael. Always great to be here. Just another day, another battle as far as I'm concerned. Things are not the way they should be. I'm just going to be honest. I think things are really messed up right now.
There's a lot of that
Shocker.
going on. What's that?
I said shocker.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's a lot of that going on. It's a never-endless stream of either snatching defeat from the jaws of victory or just improprieties, things that shouldn't be going on. Like, we'll jump right into it. You know, this I saw this headline last night and almost couldn't believe it, that Tulsi Gabbard was raided by the CIA. Now, even her office is saying, well, it wasn't a raid, but they did come over and seize documents. And I don't quite understand how that doesn't qualify as a raid, other than I suppose they didn't have a warrant, which why are they operating on U.S. soil anyway? But DNI denies.
Warrant, you said?
Not that I've seen anywhere. I've read through several articles on this, so I don't know how. Apparently, it's being framed now they came over and just grabbed some documents. DNI denies reports CIA raided Tulsi Gabbard's office to seize documents related to JFK and MK Ultra. So there's a few things here. And Anna Paulina Luna is the one that broke the story. Now they're saying she exaggerated things and all that. I'm not so sure that's true. Actually, I'll just go pull the next headline too. Rep. Anna Paulina Luna fires off preservation letter to CIA after whistleblower testifies that CIA seized MK Ultra and JFK assassination files from Tulsi Gabbard. So the CIA, they were already ordered to hand over all the documents on the JFK assassination. We covered this months ago, that they handed over most things, but sat on thousands of pages of documents. So supposedly this is what Gabbard had in her office. They were preparing to release these as well, because again, for whatever reason, we're still redacting names in these documents, even though most of these operatives are long since dead. So, I mean, I don't understand why we would be continuing to black out their name and identification, especially if they may have been involved in this plot. And then the MK Ultra, same thing. Luna's preparing for a hearing on this. They're supposedly released all these documents before. A bunch of them they admitted to destroying back in the 70s during the church committee hearings. But I guess they found them. So the CIA really does not want this stuff out there. If they're going to her office seizing documents, and again, I don't know if this is an insurrection from within the CIA because the director was Ratcliffe was overseas with Trump right now in China. So did somebody internally give this order to go over to her office, seize this stuff before it can be handed over to Luna and Congress or released to the public? I mean, what's going on here and who's actually in control? Gabbard should have oversight over the CIA, not the other way around.
Well, it should be obvious by now who's in charge and who's in control, and it's what we've been calling the deep state, the permanent administrative class. And I've had those experiences myself, and it's naive to think that a new administration comes in and everything's going to be cleaned up. I mean, the two times I've been inside the DOJ in Washington, D.C., I've been let in and out by a woman who's worked there for 50 years. 50 years, half a century. She's talked
Yeah.
about the different presidents she's worked under. For them, you know, Donald Trump is just the latest to come and go. And they know how to deal with somebody they don't like. They just
Yeah.
stall, they obfuscate, they do slick PR. That's happening right now with DOJ. A lot of people aren't buying it, but you know, this did we think that the CIA is just going to lay down and take it?
No. I mean I think it's obvious what is actually going on, and to further back that up, we have this story, we covered this the other day, but it bears repeating right now. John Brennan admits there's a legion of deep state operatives in the DOJ and CIA resisting Trump's orders, and this is an extension of that. I think this is proof that there's still a cadre, a deep state embedded within the DOJ, within the CIA, within most government agencies. We know they're over at the FBI too. We'll get to another story there here in just a little bit, but it's very clear what's going on. Like, the problem hasn't been solved. And I get that it's going to be somewhat difficult for them to root out and find every single person that's involved with this essentially shadow government, that is going to take time. But what I don't understand, well, I'll go back again. I think this bears repeating. We covered a story several weeks ago, just before Bondi was fired, that we had this other 30-year employee over at the DOJ come out and basically say he was resigning his position. Now, he was also, again, close to retirement, as other people pointed out. But he said, like, this is an ongoing problem, and that part of the issue at the DOJ specifically is that there was a plan put forward from the Trump administration that was not followed at the DOJ when Bondi took over. That in other departments, the reason we're not having major problems until this one here today with the CIA is because Marco Rubio goes into the State Department. He follows the plan. They get rid of all these subversives, these leftist operatives, these globalist deep staters, whatever you want to call them. They went and got rid of all the ones they knew about to begin with. And that's why they're not stymieing our efforts there, blocking things, dragging things out. We don't see all the leaks, all the anonymous sources coming forward, because they followed the plan through other government departments. They got rid of a lot of these problem employees. They already knew about them. And other ones, they've made it very clear that there's consequences this time if you leak things. But that plan was basically just ignored over at Justice. That they've gotten rid of a few really horrible attorneys, or ones that have actually stabbed them in the back, handed things over to opposition, tried to prevent prosecutions. But they, by and large, 90% was his number, were infected, that they were deep state operatives. They were not there to serve the nation, to serve the interest of justice. They are there for a political agenda. And I think this is proof of that. Considering, like, the JFK files, especially, I mean, I think what they're sitting on proves culpability at the CIA, maybe other government departments as well, in the assassination of JFK, and that's why they don't want these documents out. And with MK Ultra, I can only imagine what's in these documents, considering what's come forward and how horrible we know MK Ultra, MK Opta, and other programs that went on from the 60s through, I guess, the late 70s, some probably further than that. I'm sure a lot of these programs are still going on, but under different names. I've said it a bunch of times on here, Operation Mockingbird never really ended. It just mutated into something else, or it just went black, and now it's not an official program. But it seems very clear they still have their hooks into the media, and they just use them as a mouthpiece, a tool to push their agenda, their narrative forward, and nothing's being done to stop that.
Yeah, unfortunately, human nature doesn't change, and we have this great experiment that started almost 250 years ago now. And to my dismay, I'm seeing even that narrative being used to deceive people. These permanent class people in Washington, D.C. are very deceitful. They're very good at playing us on our emotions. And I actually just put out a video on a series of clips actually, on X, where someone high in the DOJ was playing a preview of this 250th anniversary video that they've made of all these different people talking, Cash Patel and others. And they're using it as a piece to basically trumpet the DOJ, trumpet the permanent class, and then those who go along with them from administrations. And Todd Blanche, by the way, is an insider, lifelong Democrat who
Yeah.
was a prosecutor under Obama, et cetera, et cetera. So they're going to put out this glossy piece, and you can hear it in the background. And the very interesting thing is, if you watch this, you just go to at Real Freedom Talk um, on X, you're going
Hmm.
to hear this video playing in the background that are going to hear what this administrator, Todd Blanchard, senior counsel, is actually saying, which is diametrically opposite to it. So it's this rare opportunity to hear the official narrative and then what's said behind closed doors. Now, they don't like that I recorded them. It was legal for me to do so, but they do not like their own methods being used against them. Look at James O'Keefe. He did a sting on some White House staff, and now he's suddenly not invited to he's no longer invited to the press room. You
Yeah.
know, we need more of this kind of thing. We need more people recording, more people revealing, more people getting involved. And here's something too, I have to warn: be careful of the narratives. The Benny Johnsons and others that go out there. Sometimes they get it right, but oftentimes they're paid, and they may or may not know who's paying them. They may not know that they're being used as an arm of propaganda. But there is this big push right now, to this golden age push, to make it seem like everything's just peachy and fine and it's all going great. Well, meanwhile, the thousands of Americans who suffered weaponization aren't being helped.
Hmm.
The administration is going on as if um, everything's fine, and it's not. And
Yeah.
so it's time to start telling the truth, and for Americans to be courageous and step up and say, no, no, I'm not buying the glimmer and glitz. I'm not buying it. There's something wrong. um, Listen to, here's what I want to say. And look, I'm on my soapbox here, but I want to say, pay attention not to the people who are forming organizations and making money and profiting greatly off their podcasts, but follow the people who have actually taken hits and losses and who are struggling to get by, because typically they're going to be the people who are willing to tell the truth. A lot of us have been offered money before, but we're not going to take money to obscure the truth.
Yeah. I mean, that is part of the problem, right? Is these false narratives that come out really from both sides, and we'd be better served just sticking with the truth. I mean, it's bad enough out there already. We don't need this nonsense. We're going to get more to that here in just a little bit. I mean, but there's so many just absolute lies being spewed right now to prop up narratives on both sides. And again, we'd be better served as a nation just living in reality. Honest and again, we said this over and over again. If people were just doing their jobs right now and doing what we voted for, we wouldn't be in this position by and large. But yeah, it doesn't end there with the CIA. I mean, again, it should have been blatantly obvious at these hearings that occurred yesterday. And yeah, I'm aware this is an older headline. I like this one better than what was up today with the summary. But active CIA whistleblower set to blow lid off deep state COVID-19 cover-up and explosive Senate testimony. Senator Rand Paul reveals Intel community knew lab leak origins for years while American taxpayers funded Wuhan research. So once again, this is a insider CIA whistleblower that confirmed what we've all suspected, what people have been saying for over 5 years now, that the intel agencies were involved in crafting this narrative. They helped cover things up. They lied. They laundered stuff through the sources in the media. And this was all to cement power. In reality, I think, I do think that this conspiracy theory that what they really wanted was total control and dominance. We talked about this again recently, that right now there is a fresh push for some sort of a digital ID. The Democrats just submitted a bill into Congress that'll implement something similar to this Online Safety Act that's over in the UK, in Australia, other places in Europe, that now your name will be tied to your online identity and your phone, any calls that you make, and this will all be recorded and available to the intel agencies and law enforcement to do what they please with. I mean, we have to maintain some element of our privacy. We have to get warrants back under control. This whole thing with FISA and extending that again. This is wrong. This is part of the problem. Even President Trump called out for years. I don't understand the sudden reversal. We already know that there's too many people within these intelligence communities and law enforcement, federal law enforcement, that cannot be trusted, that weaponize their power, and they have no problem doing that. Right now, I think a lot of them are just laying low, and they're waiting for the administration to change again, like at the DOJ, to where these directives just won't matter anymore. They can go back to business as usual, and that's what they all really want.
Well, and the big problem is that many of us saw what was happening. Go to realfreedomtalk.com, go to the Freedom Talk magazine page, go to the very first issue of Freedom Talk magazine. There's an article that I wrote. I had actually written it months earlier, but in that very first October 2021 issue, there's an article called How to Murder Millions. And I did a study on how governments take control of their populations, how they psychologically manipulate them, and the patterns. And you'll see that I bring several points up that have borne true over these last, 5, 6 years. We are headed down a path, and
Yeah.
here's the problem: many of us stood up to it when government officials wouldn't, when people who are in office now, so-called big influencers, were absent. Some of us stood up. I was arrested twice. First in on September 15th, 2020. Yeah, 2020, not even 2021. It was that far back,
Yeah.
and it took the hits for that, for speaking the truth. Now we flash forward, Trump's in office. We all think, okay, those of us who stood up and took the hits, who got arrested, went to jail, whatever it may be, and whether it be for standing up for school families, or any number of things, questioning the election. We thought, well, Trump's going to get in office. This administration is going to help us. We're going to be recognized for holding the line. The weaponization done against us is going to be reversed. We're going to get some relief, because we know it's been well established that the government weaponized against the American people who dissented against the program. But what we're seeing is that that isn't happening. The weaponization working group, despite what Todd Blanche would want you to believe, he destroyed it secretly and then leaked that to CNN. Uh, so what we're seeing is, there's been a lot of rhetoric, but nothing's really changing. DOJ is trying to put points on the board. Okay, they did the James Comey shell thing and a few other things,
Yeah.
but nothing of this trickles down to the American people, the people who actually suffered the weaponization. Tina Peters sits in prison. Ed Martin told me before they got rid of him that there's 10 ways to free Tina Peters, and the DOJ hasn't even tried a half of one. But they project this image of, oh, look at what we're doing. Look at us. We're putting points on the board. We're knocking out of the park. They're not knocking out of the park. They're they're flossing you. They're
Yeah,
putting out
it's a
PR
dog and
to
pony
deceive you.
show.
It is, because look, I'm not trying to be somebody. I didn't even want to build an organization. I stood and held the line and lost everything. I'm one of the targeted parents. My family's been severely abused, targeted, weaponized against. I'm being held down and tamped down by DOJ for telling the truth. I have nothing to gain by saying these things, everything to lose. This is a massive problem, and one of the biggest obstacles we have right now are these cheerleaders who go forward and say, "Oh, we're in the golden age, everything's fine." Look, I appreciate things Trump has done. I appreciate the fighters like Tulsi Gabbard, but we have to be honest and say, no, a lot of things haven't been done, and we have a lot of people in the administration who simply just don't care about anyone outside the Beltway. And I end up sounding like this disgruntled person, but actually, in point of fact, going back to Fauci, a lot of people stood up and did the right thing and took losses for it. And until we restore those people and we go after the Epstein perpetrators and really bring some
Yeah.
justice to the land, we're not in a golden age. I don't care how the country's doing financially in the stock market. If we leave behind the people who have fought and bled and died and gone to prison for this country, that's not a golden age. That's a whitewashed tomb with dead bones inside of it.
Yeah. We got a quick update on this. It looks like there was just I don't know if it was a press conference or not, but or technically a press conference, but we do have a quick update on this. This is from Tulsi Gabbard. CIA took back 40 boxes of files related to JFK and MK Ultra. Luna had said yesterday that Comer was going to send a preservation letter out. That's been done, that they have 24 hours now to hand over these 40 boxes to Congress. We'll see what comes of that. But there is some.
Have they taken anything out of the boxes in the meantime?
Yeah, that's the real question. I guess that's what this preservation letter is supposed to handle. But I'm sure a strongly worded letter will definitely stop the CIA and whatever nefarious activity that they're involved in here. They'll absolutely listen. Speaking of the CIA, I've got one more story. And, again, with all the other nonsense, who knows what to think. Mexico and U.S. refute New York Times article and CNN reports of joint assassination operations on Mexican soil. So supposedly these involve the CIA and the Mexican military, that they're going down there and assassinating narcos. even though again there don't seem to be too many reports of actual deaths. This is one of those kind of things where I kind of wish this program was going on, that this was like oh, what's the name of that old Tom Clancy movie? Um, where they drop the team down into South America and they're going around burning all
Oh
the
yeah. Mm.
uh
It's not In the Line of Fire, right? Patriot Games.
no,
Mm.
might have been Patriot Games. Sorry, it's been so long since I've seen that. My grandpa used to
Well,
read all these Tom
they're in the
Clancy.
black sedans and SUVs, and they get caught in that street. I think I remember what you're talking about.
Y- Yeah, my grandpa used to read all those books when I was a kid. But yeah, I wish that was going on. I wish we were going around burning the cocaine fields and assassinating all the little underlings from the cartels that are running their operation to put pressure on them, and then going after their bank accounts. I mean, I guess they did just expose hundreds of Mexican politicians and other officials that were taking direct bribes from the cartel. But I tend to actually believe the CIA and their denial on this one, because I kind of feel like if this was actually going on, we'd see a little more evidence of it.
Hmm. It's hard to know, and for all we know, it could be more psychological warfare. The CIA could put out something like this and then easily refute it and use it to say, see, they're all lying about us. It's so twisty
Yeah.
right now. It's so twisty, and all the American people want is truth. They want accountability, and they want their lives back.
Yeah.
And all these games are going on. For me, like I've been to DC so many times. We moved closer in part to be closer so I could help more people. But there's this whole world going on in DC and around DC that is so foreign to all of us. It's as if, you know, it's to me, it's worse than when the British were managing the colonies and governing the colonies, because we don't get any say. We see, people like insiders being pardoned and getting special privileges, but the rest of us, we're outside the castle. So
Yeah.
it's hard for us as Americans to even decipher what's going on. I really honestly like Cash Patel, Dan Bongino, all these guys who wrote about government gangsters and we're going to go in and clean things up.
Hmm.
It appears to us they've just become a part of the system, and we need to just shut these agencies down and start from the ground up. And I
Oh
know that's
yeah.
idealistic, but that's kind of what a lot of American people expected, not that they would become a part of the system.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, one of my favorite little like YouTube or whatever channels, I guess it's TikTok, that's popped up is the Dan Bongino versus himself, um,
I
where
haven't
they have
seen
the
that.
they're great, but they just take clips from his show, since leaving the FBI, and they run that against clips of him from a few years ago before he was back in government, when he was saying all the right things, saying, we got to take down all of the Epstein associates. We've got to nuke the deep state, that there's 6,000 employees at least at the FBI that got to go. We got to get rid of the agency. It's a shell of its former self, blah, blah, blah. And then what he says now, where he is just a mouthpiece, a propagandist, essentially. And anybody that calls them out on it, suddenly, they're a panicking, they're black pilled, whatever. They just don't
Yeah,
understand the situation.
yeah. All that's in this little video I made, which I haven't posted yet. I'm gonna have to send it to you right after the show, unless you want to be brave and just put it on. I'll send it to you. But
You send it to me now. We can run it here in a minute.
okay. Should I email it to you here?
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. And I'll
Let me see if I can attach it to an email here while we're talking. But so part of the problem that we have is this cult of personality, and we're not led by perfect people. We're not led by people that we should idolize. And I don't fault Donald Trump for this necessarily, but people have been doing artwork. Apparently, there's a gold statue now of Donald Trump. It's
yeah.
such a part of human nature to basically worship people and to not be critical of them. And what we're seeing happen is um, that sorry, one of my kids peeked their head in. As much as I tell them to not bother me when I'm on an interview, it's a never ending battle. This is what we deal with outside the beltway here.
It
um,
always happens. Yeah, yeah.
as much as people should know better, they continue to focus on the person rather than what they're doing. Like
Hmm.
in any job, you're not going to be evaluated by, hey, he's a real nice guy. You're going to be evaluated in, did you get things done? Did you fulfill the responsibilities? So I sent that to you. I think it's going to be a link to a file on Google Drive, but here's where I'm at. I didn't start out a political person. A lot of people say that. I've had to get involved in it because politics invaded our daily lives. It's, when you're talking about what they're teaching your kids in school and coming after you and closing down your businesses and things, suddenly everybody becomes political. I've spent the last 5 years getting to know who's who, going to Washington, D.C., trying to break into these circles so that I could help the people around me. I don't have an agenda. I would really like to see the people in this administration succeed. Harmeet Dillon, Kash Patel, name it, all of them. But I base my evaluations on what they're doing on, are they actually doing what they were hired to do? Because we as the American people are the bosses of the government. We're supposed to be. We've abdicated that. Unfortunately, we need to grab it back.
Yeah.
But what I'll get back a lot of times is they'll say, okay, such and such a person didn't do this, or they did something that should be questioned, and people will immediately attack you on personality. Well, so and so's a nice person. Hey, this guy's a patriot. What? And I'll just ask for reform or ask for questions to be asked, and people will jump out and say, why do you hate Donald Trump? Don't you know how much he sacrificed? And I'm like, I didn't even mention Donald Trump. I'm
Yeah.
just doing my due diligence as a citizen because, as John Locke said, we all have a sacred duty to evaluate the conduct of our rulers. So if we can't even ask questions and we're going to be called doomers and black pillars, that's like that's censorship. That's a tactic designed to avoid any criticism, because as the American taxpayers, we are supposed to be critiquing. We need to be fair. We need to be as fact based as we can. But we're kind of our own worst enemies right now, because if you criticize anybody, you're going to have this flood of people just come and attack you. So hence, I went on a video. I went on an interview last Friday with Jonathan Gross, who worked for the DOJ. He's an attorney. He's been really great throughout his career helping J6ers, and he's interested in the targeted parents issue now. But he was on the weaponization working group. He recently resigned, and he's talking about what's actually going on inside the DOJ. David Summerall from Stop Hate is there. He's helped the J6ers a lot. Cindy
Oh,
Young,
yeah.
who's both a J6er and a targeted parent, and me. So if Michael, if you're going to run that clip, I just thought I'd give that preview of what's
Yep.
going on.
And you got good timing. I just got it set up. So here we go.
Okay, great. I can't hear it. Can you hear it?
No, I can't. Give me 1 second. We're going to try this again.
So while you're queuing that up, I just have to say, being very, very honest, I started Freedom Talk Magazine to be the journal of truth and virtue. I work for a living. I do freelance. I sell ads for the magazine, or try to, memberships. But I am devoted, like the name says, to truth and virtue. So it's always a risk to go out there and just be very open and honest and just say, this is the information that's out there. So that's what I did during this interview, and these are some clips from it.
All right, I think I've got this fixed now where the audio should play.
A guy sat on a board of this nonprofit. They paid him money that was donated to the prisoners for their commissary, for their phone, for their bills. They paid $30,000 for this cat.
I was very open on a post that was Ed Martin, and I don't care. I'm going to speak the truth, and I'm not going to say whether or not he earned it. But I do see this thing, and again, I like Ed. I talked to him. I have his number, everything. But I see this industry where American people suffer. They go through hell. Nobody cares until it becomes politically popular. Yeah. And then these guys jump to the front. They create nonprofits. They do their little organizations. They raise money. They end up being heroes. And the people they're supposed to be serving have not gotten any help.
Or they do a podcast, or they do a show, and they get their friends to promote it, and they do the circle, the round robin, all these people, and that's, we're the popular kids, and give us the money and the views and the clicks and we're tired of that. As Americans, we're sick of that. Where's the real people like you, Kelly, that people will listen to? They're not programmed to listen to good people anymore. That's the whole point, man. When you see virtue and honor, you just don't believe it. You're like, that can't be real. That's not these days.
I'll put out things like, there's still corruption in the DOJ, and I'll get people saying, why do you hate Donald Trump? Don't you know he sacrificed for the country? I'm like, what are you even talking about?
Jonathan, you've seen a lot going on in these cases and how people reacted and the public's perception. What do you think?
I think that the point that you are both saying is a big problem, in that if you have friends in the inner circle who are there, then you can get help. But the rest of us, we have no recourse. And that's a third world structure. We can't have that. There has to be a way. And our system could be broken if regular people don't have an avenue. I mean, I know people, lots of people, as do all of you guys, who are being weaponized against right now by the Trump DOJ.
So let me qualify that by saying I do like Ed Martin. I think he's done some great things, but I also know, because I looked it up, that he did take $30,000 for sitting on a board of J6 before he went into office. I also know that he was appointed director of the Weaponization Working Group, and I was there when he was investigating Adam Schiff, and Todd Blanche, instead of joining in that investigation, started investigating Ed Martin, and then suddenly Ed Martin was gone. And I've told Ed personally that I would, Ed, please speak out and tell people what's actually going on. But instead, he's kind of, look, I'm just going to tell what I see. I'm not going to judge these people. They have to stand before God. And I appreciate things they've done. But here's what I'm seeing is that there is this big industry, this money-making machine, where instead of really helping people, because I know so many J6ers, for Pete's sake, we fostered a little boy while his mother was in prison for walking around the Capitol, that aren't getting help. And all they see is like, oh, there's another nonprofit springing up. There's another event, a black tie event to raise money. How much of the funds gets to these people? And I speak from experience, because I was one of the most severely targeted of school parents. So I'm not trying to disparage anybody. I'm not trying to draw conclusions, but it's time we ask questions. It's time we say, hey, I really like this person, but what are they actually doing? What do they know? Are they willing? Because if you're going to hold that public office, you're supposed to be held to a higher standard, because many of us got arrested, lost our businesses, doxxed, you name it. So we should expect people who are paid to be in office to stand up and have the courage. And I'm not sure I'm seeing it.
Well, no, we're not. We're clearly not seeing it.
I challenge people from the time I was first arrested by a guy who said, oh, I'm a patriot, I shouldn't be doing this. I said, then why are you? He said, I want to lose my job. I said to him, as I'm handcuffed for the first time in my life, your job is to protect people like me from people like that. I would say the same thing to everybody in government right now. If your first priority is your career, your household, your reputation, you shouldn't be there, because you're representing people who gave all of that away to fight for our country and to stand up for our kids. So I'm kind of losing patience here, because I have seen so many people who've taken the hits and they're not getting any help. And these people in DC are constantly thumping their chests. It's like show and tell. Look at the things we've done. I don't want to see what you've done. I want to see the people that you're supposed to be serving and report on them, and tell me how you've improved their lives. Tell me how you've helped them for the sacrifices they've made for this country. I don't give a damn what your title is or what your organization is, or you're an influencer, you have so many followers. I care about truth and virtue. That's what I care about. And I hear every day from people whose lives have been lost, a medical doctor who went to prison for questioning Obamacare, who's not gotten any help, a man who's going to be sent to prison and his family is already in poverty where he was wealthy once. A guy, by the way, who goes to church with Dan Bongino, said that Dan Bongino was happy to hang around with him when he was doing well, but once he got attacked by lawfare, suddenly Dan disappeared. I want the American people to get help. We're not here to be cattle to pay for people's salaries and advance people's careers. It's fine and good if they do that. It really is. But where are the results for the American people? And I'm tired of pussyfooting around it. So I'm going to be releasing recordings, naming names. People can defend themselves. They're big boys and girls. If I'm wrong, if Ed Martin comes to me and says, this, I really earned that $30,000, great. But what from that effort went to help the J6ers? Because I know so many of them are just struggling to survive. We've had J6ers parents, others commit suicide. So I really want some answers at this point.
Yeah. When you're talking about Michael Castellero, he'll actually be on Terry Newsom's program this evening, Behind Enemy Lines. So we'll have him. If you guys want to see an update on Castellero's story, tune in tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern. He'll be on there to talk about it.
It's Michael Castellero, and as you know,
Yeah.
we had we lost our home, we lost everything in this fight, and yet here I am trying to figure out each month how to cobble together the bills with freelance, how to restart our lives at I'm 56, and I'm reaching out to Michael Castellero and trying to help him and telling him I don't even know how we could afford it, but if you go to prison, I would be willing to go down, pick up your family, and keep them in our house until they get stabilized. Like, this is who the American people are. But
Yeah.
these people strutting around Washington, D.C., making the focus their lives, and
Yep.
members of Congress who want to be celebrities. What are you doing to help these people? Because
Not
it's not a
much, but they
golden
are
age for
going
them.
after the DC Bar Association, apparently.
Okay, but
Y-
so now we're
y-
protecting lawyers, but
yeah.
that's not the focus of
So,
weaponization. They're the ones that are
yes.
supposed to be helping Americans.
So DOJ files explosive lawsuit against corrupt DC bar, slams blatantly partisan arm of leftist causes for weaponization bar discipline against Trump's lawyers. And again, this is something else that we've talked about, that why it's so hard to get a lawyer if you're on the right, because they essentially scare people out of it. They threaten their career, their livelihood, something else that needs to end. But again, why is this taking so long to get to this point where something's actually being done?
And don't get me wrong, I'm all for this, but why, in the midst of all this, did Todd Blanche kill the weaponization working group? Why hasn't
exactly.
he answered my question as to why he's allowing parents to still be labeled domestic terrorists? So for me, like, I get it. We have to rein in the bar association, but how does that help these families who are in
Well, and again, the bottom
dire
line is we haven't gone
predicaments?
after anybody in the deep state yet. That keeps getting teased out. Nobody's been arrested. I mean, it's just an utter failure at the DOJ.
The executive order says that the people in the DOJ who targeted school parents and others are supposed to be disciplined, are supposed to be identified and gotten rid of. Well, on January 23rd, I sat in Todd Blanche's senior counsel, Vance Day's office, and he told me, applied a broad brush to all the parents because we're frustrated nothing's happened. He said, "Oh, it's the opinion of the whole DOJ. We don't negotiate with terrorists." I don't care if that guy's a Democrat or Republican. If anybody has that attitude, you're gone, because
No.
look, I'm supposed to be able to come forward and ask questions. I'm supposed to be able to say, "Hey, if you haven't done anything by January 15th, I'm going to write an article saying you haven't done anything." He couched that as terrorism. It's really, free speech is terrorism. That's what's got us here in the first place.
Yeah.
So if anybody still has these ideas that just shut up, sit down, and don't complain, well, they need to be gone yesterday.
Yeah. Well, again, the whole DOJ needs an enema. We've got to clean out everybody that's in there that's part of the problem, or is protecting the people that are part of the problem. And we need actual justice. This whole lack of arrest is killing us right now. Like, going into the midterms right now, there is no reason we should be this far behind, but we are, because nothing's been done. And I know.
And I've been putting out messages, but I'm being shadow banned. I've been putting out messages that there are all these people all over the country who are saying, "I'm not going to vote in the midterms. I'm never going to vote for Trump. I'm never going to vote the MAGA ticket." And why is that? Because none of the promises.
Lack of action.
Well, yeah. And so here's something. Engage your critical thinking, everybody who's watching this. People are saying, "Oh, well, Todd Blanche just got started. Give him a chance." Well, I showed a recording where Dan Bongino was proudly boasting, "Oh yeah, Todd Blanche, he's the DAG. He runs everything. He's, Pam Bondi's too busy with budgets and things. Todd Blanche actually runs it." Well, so no, that's bullshit. He didn't just get into office. He's putting points on the board because he wants to stay. He wants to be the permanent AG.
Yeah.
He's been in charge all along. The buck stops with him. Nothing has happened. In fact, not only have the victims of weaponization not been helped, it's gone backward to the point where I left that January 23rd meeting very, very concerned. My wife had the whole trauma of it come back, because it feels like, yeah, not only are they not going to help us, they still look at us as terrorists. That's chilling.
Yeah.
If they look at, moms and dads who went to school board meetings or schools to peacefully speak out as terrorists, what do they think of J6s? What do they think of you? What do they think of conservative podcasters? I mean, I don't know what more I can do, Michael, than to show their hands and share these recordings and say, this is how they truly feel. But then we have people come along and say, "Oh, you're a black pillar." No, hell no. I want this administration to succeed. And I'm really upset that it's dropping the ball left and right.
Yeah. Again, especially on justice. J6 whistleblower claims one data point is smoking gun evidence of insider foreknowledge. So this is interesting, and this is somebody that again worked with this. I guess were asked to give it 2 weeks, 5 weeks ago before they came forward and brought up this information. But it looks like evidence that may have been destroyed by the J6 committee proves that there was insider foreknowledge of what happened, and that there was a plan put in place, that they wanted a specific outcome. They wanted to set a narrative, and apparently we have documents, phone data, phone calls, text messages, and other things that prove this, that they knew about this going into January 6th. But apparently Congress destroyed the evidence, the J6 committee. Now, it's possible, again, this great article, it's up on Liberty Daily. What goes into it is that this evidence likely still exists, but officially, I guess it's been destroyed, even though they had it and were able to go through it previously. But again, I think everybody knows it's an orchestrated event. I mean, for God's sakes, Nancy Pelosi had a camera crew with her. So, I mean, they knew something was going down. They wanted to create a narrative, and they used this as fuel, to go after people on the right. And it's not just the J6 defendants; it went beyond that. This is the same narrative they created to go after people attending church, to weaponize law enforcement against patriots all over the country, basically to have a chilling effect so people would not go out and protest again after January 6th, because if we go out and protest in the streets, there's consequences. When the left does it, they're given millions of dollars, they file their lawsuits, it's always settled. But again, this all goes back to the same root problem: is we can't have this multi-tier justice system anymore. We have to live up to the Constitution. There has to be equal protection under the law. It has to be applied the same way for everybody. We can't be protecting the Epstein and his buddies just because so many of them are members of Congress or powerful business leaders or whatever else. We can't continue to protect all these deep state operatives on the inside. We're seeing the effect of that. What happens when you don't clear them out right now with what just happened at the CIA and what's happened at the FBI and the Department of Justice. Something's got to change. This is rotten to the core, and it has to be fixed.
Well, it just be raining smoking guns in Washington, D.C. They're just everywhere. Like when I coordinated a July 15th press conference on the Capitol Triangle with all the media there, all the parenting group representatives, several members of Congress. By the way, Todd Blanche would not allow Ed Martin to go to that, even though he was the weaponization working group director. Driving home from that, America First Legal put out the Smoking Gun Report. That was the title of it, on the weaponization of the federal government against school parents. And yet, flash forward to January of 2026, I'm sitting in an office with a guy who supposedly has taken, we moved from Ed Martin, who was actually making progress, to this guy, and he acted as if he didn't know anything. Like, this wasn't a federal issue. Like, we got smoking guns everywhere, but who's taking care of it? What we have is very simply like what we saw in the Roman Republican, when you had competing power brokers that had clients, personalities. So it was Marius versus Sulla, Caesar versus Pompey. They all had their followers, and it was this constant warfare between these competing factions. Somewhere in the middle of this is the American people saying, we don't care about your little spats and your egos and everything else. We just want our country. Like, we get along with our neighbors. And I know, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene and some others get a lot of criticism. I saw a photo, whether it's real or not, of Marjorie Taylor Greene with Alex Soros. I'm not down for that, because there are some people who are truly bad. But there is a grain of truth to it, in the sense that we have been deliberately divided as people, because I go out and I see my neighbors and I don't ask, what's your political party? We're kind to one another. So we've been artificially divided, and we're put into these two camps. You have to be for this person or that person. So we get into this cult of personality, instead of using our critical thinking and saying, hey, this is a government of, for, and by the people. We are going to evaluate our leaders. We're not going to fall for this BS of falling into one camp or another. We're going to be faithful to the Constitution. We're going to understand the founding principles. That's where we're at. And I don't think we're going to get there as long as we constantly have these two sides played against one another. That's
Yeah.
That's
Well, I mean, we're
my
always going to have
opinion.
that, though. I mean, that's the reality is there's always going to be two sides, whatever label you put them
Right, but
on.
my
Um,
point is, we have to be after truth, not what letter is behind someone's name, because the Democrats have gotten very good at appropriating that Republican letter and gaining trust just because of the party affiliation, and then selling
yeah,
us all out. We have to look. The media has abdicated as the fourth estate. We have to be the watchdogs now. We have to be saying, okay, yeah, so and so said this, but is it true? I don't care. Like, the Apostle Paul said, I don't care if an angel of God comes down and preaches a different gospel, follow the gospel. It's sort of like that. It's like, I don't care who says it. Focus on, is it true? Is it substantiated? And then call them out. And I don't care who they are. Just because you disagree with someone or you fact check them doesn't mean you hate them. It means you're being a responsible citizen.
sure. All right, let's jump over here to our next story regarding fraud. Vance announces federal government is deferring $1.3 billion in Medicaid reimbursements to California, suspends 800 hospices. I mean, this is a drop in the bucket. I'm glad something's happening, but, we just had a story broke. I think it was last week. It might have been Monday. That new estimates in California just regarding the hospice and Medicaid fraud, not even getting into all the COVID fraud, the homeless industrial complex, or anything else, that they have already topped $200 billion in fraud, which was the initial estimate for total. I think that they were nearing $250 billion just out of those programs. So, again, I'm glad that they suspended this, and maybe this is a bigger impact than it sounds like, because I know that that number of the $250 billion is over the course of several years. But same thing, I'm glad that they can arrest some of the fraudsters on the ground, stop these 800 fake hospices that have been bilking the American taxpayers and California taxpayers for years now. But we got to arrest the actual officials that are involved. It's got to go further up the chain. It's great again in Minnesota that they can grab 22 Somalians that are ripping us off, these Somali pirates. But again, I care a lot more about getting the elected and appointed officials that allow this to happen, the ones that went after whistleblowers. We know we had 550 whistleblowers in Minnesota. Many of them were retaliated against. Nothing's been done there. And there are numerous people to arrest. We know that this fraud's been connected to Tampon Tim's office, to Keith Ellison, his associates, and a lot of their lackeys underneath them. They need to go to jail. I mean, the same thing in California. I'm sure there's a list of people there. We keep hearing about the homeless industrial complex over there. I know that's not going to total as much money federally as all the medical fraud, Medicaid, hospice, autism programs, everything else they're looking into. But this all needs to be resolved. And we need to actually arrest the officials that are involved. Again, the people that perpetrated it, that's great too. Claw back our money. In a lot of cases, deport these people, get them the hell out of here, make sure they can never come back. But again, we need actual results. I'm glad they can have found this so far. Maybe this is a good first step. But again, I want to know where the real indictments are, the real perpetrators, the people that have facilitated this and allowed this to happen. Because I don't think it was most of these Somali fraudsters. They were just copying what worked to line their own pockets.
Yeah, Michael, you're so patient with me, and you're so good at analyzing what's happening. You and I discussed last night, I know, addressing uh, causes versus symptoms. And a lot of people are essentially dispensing the right medication to try to keep the flare-ups down, deal with the illness of our government. Yeah, and for some reason, you keep bringing me on because I tend to focus on the broad principles behind it. And basically, why are we having these symptoms in the first place? And a lot of it is because we have lost our sense of virtue, holding people accountable,
Yeah.
getting people into office who are righteous, who are actually people of um, good character. And we know the founders have said in multiple times in many ways, like, without morality, without religion, and by religion I mean basically right living, virtue. We don't
Yeah.
have a country. So what we're seeing is people infesting our government from local level up to federal, who have no morals, no allegiance uh, to God, to godly principles. and
Mm-hmm.
that's the cause of the problem. And so, unfortunately, we also compromise and we put people into office knowing that they're not very great, but maybe they're useful. It's utilitarian. They'll get something done for us.
Yeah.
Lindsey Graham. I remember someone telling me, "Yeah, we all know who Lindsey Graham is, but he's useful." Why are we
Yeah, and that
keeping this
is.
guy around?
Yeah, well, that's a big part of the problem right there. And again, what makes Lindsey Graham so useful? How is he accomplishing these things? Is it in a
Because
moral
he
and
knows how to
just
play the
way,
game.
or is it just is it just he knows how to play the game? He knows what palms to grease. He knows what's to say or what to say. He has the right media connections to then float that message. Hopefully he goes down. I'm glad this other guy dropped out of the race, and it looks like Mark Lynch may actually be able to take this guy out. I got one other
Yeah,
story because we don't have too
yeah,
much
but
time left. I want to get to, and that's with Thomas Massey right here.
yeah,
Uh,
that's a good one.
Exclusive. Massey accuser offers context undermining the narrative. So this is a great article up there. Andrew Mueller wrote it. You can find it on Liberty Sentinel. I think I tweeted it out yesterday too. If you guys want to read it yourselves, you should. So Andrew actually reached out to this accuser and he got into the full story because what's being presented by a lot of people in the media, like not only is it completely false, but it's not even what she's claiming. She's basically claiming psychological abuse of some kind because her and Massey, I guess, had dated for a little while. She then applied for a position in Representative Pratt's office, didn't get the position, and basically that was because Massey recommended against her. And I'm kind of oversimplifying things there. Read the full article if you want to get the exact details. But even she's not making claims that there was any kind of abuse of any kind. No sexual abuse, no exploitation, no blackmail, no verbal abuse or anything like that. She's basically just said, oh, Massey made it hard for her to get this job. But it also, again, if you read the rest of the article, appears that was justified because she did create problems for Representative Pratt and in her office. Now, maybe that was justified, maybe it wasn't. But again, there doesn't appear to be any substance to this. It's just an effort to take out Massey because Trump doesn't like him. But Massey's right. Massey has principles. He actually stood by them. And unfortunately, Trump's abandoned a lot of his. And this all goes back to the Epstein files and releasing them. Because, I'm sorry, I know a lot of people get mad, but when you're refusing to prosecute these people, you are protecting pedophiles. I know they don't like that accusation. They get really upset. But sorry, I mean, again, it's the truth. If you are refusing to prosecute all these perpetrators associated with them, and it's not even going beyond just the exploitation, the trafficking, the potential murder, and cannibalism, and other things that are accused after reading through these files. There's numerous financial crimes. A lot of those we already have the proof. But when you are refusing to prosecute anybody, and instead you got Todd Blanche out there saying, oh, well, if you find some crimes committed in these files, let us know. He. Again, you are protecting pedophiles, and there's no getting around that. Massey's right on this. I hope he wins this race. If you guys live in Kentucky in his district, make sure you get out there next Tuesday. Vote for Thomas Massey, this Galbraith guy that's running against him. I mean, I don't even, I can't find anything that this policy position this guy has. Yeah, everybody knows he's a military veteran. He's in special forces, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't mean anything. I mean, look at Eye Patch McCain. Look at Mark Kelly. Look at the rest of these people in the military. They use this as a shield to try to protect themselves from criticism. But I'm sorry, I care a lot more about what you're going to do. What are you going to accomplish while you're there? Not to mention, again, Galbraith was a never Trumper for a long time, and then all of a sudden comes around when there's a job available. So this guy's probably going to turn out to be another Lindsey Graham. He's going to be another deep state insider. Whereas Massey has some principles, and yeah, he bumps head with Trump sometime, but unfortunately, he's right on this. He's right on most of these issues where him and Trump have bumped heads.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line.
Well, I have to compliment him on his shirt color there, but part of the problem and part of the game is that unfortunately these days you're guilty until proven innocent,
Yeah.
and so these players will put out all this press and media, and they have their bought and paid for people who want to carry out their agenda.
Regurgitate it.
So, yeah, so unfortunately, too many people see something on social media or wherever, and they think, well, it must be true. Oh, Thomas Massey sexually harassed a young lady, and it's like he hasn't even gotten a chance to answer to that. And it sounds like I haven't had a chance to look into it, but it sounds like
even
maybe
she's saying that didn't happen, which is insane.
Yeah, this is absolute insanity. And look, I've met Thomas Massey. It's been a couple of years ago. I thought he seemed like a pretty decent guy. I don't agree with everything he says. I have some problems with things that some people that he appears with have said. But I think it's really important that we have people who dissent from the official narrative, who can run a clean campaign and let the voters decide. Because when somebody tips the scales like that, when President Trump tweets comments or people come out and accuse somebody of something right before the election, that's not really fair to the voters. And you can try to put the toothpaste back in the tube, but once that allegation has gone out, it's really, really difficult to undo that. It takes a lot more time and money and PR to undo something like that. It's like the old
Yeah.
trope of the retraction on page, C27
Yeah.
in the newspaper that
Yep.
nobody sees.
Well, yeah, and that's what the game is. They make the allegation, they get their allies to launder it for them. It pops out there, and there's no chance to defend against something that's clearly false. But it's just because, again, Trump wants to take down Massey because Massey's been a thorn in his side. Massey, again, is calling him to the carpet, making him deliver on these promises that they made while running, instead of just letting him shirk off and pretend there's nothing there with the Epstein files. The DOJ is great, despite them not arresting anybody. The other thing that always kills me about this is they cry about, oh, well, he went out there with Ro Khanna and held a press conference. Hey, you guys can shut the hell up, you hypocrites. You guys run out there and prop up Fetterman every time he says something you like. So don't give me that bullshit. But, whatever. Again, nobody expects these people to be honest at this point. That's really pathetic. I got one last story I want to sneak in here, and that's another failing from the GOP. Kemp finally calls for a special session to redraw Georgia congressional maps, but GOP's potential 2-seat gain won't hit until 2028. So once again, yes, they were finally pushed into doing the right thing here, getting rid of these racist VRA districts, but they're not going to allow it to take effect for 2 more years because, again, I'm sure it's Kemp, it's Georgia. These people are rhinos. These people were most certainly involved in the theft of the election that happened there in 2020, not I mentioned 2022. By the way, something the DOJ is actually doing is apparently they have indictments on at least 80 of the people that were involved in the election theft in Georgia, and those should be hitting here pretty soon. Apparently, they are already starting to bring in and interview some of them, probably offer deals for people further up the chain, but at least things are moving forward there. But once again, why does the GOP fail us every step of the way? We talked about yesterday that South Carolina, you had 5 Republicans side with the Democrats to block redistricting there. And guys, I don't understand. Again, we would not be in the situation where the makeup of Congress is in question right now if you retards would just do your job. If you would just do the things, use the power that you've been given, and fight to win. I mean, everyone knows Democrats have been using gerrymandering to maintain power for over 30 years. You can look at any congressional district in the Northeast. You can look at Illinois. You can look at California. That they draw these little zigzaggy maps to diminish concentrated red areas, dilute that vote, and put in enough blue votes that they can hold those seats. This is what's been going on for over 30 years. And the minute we start doing the same thing, playing the same game the left has and been using to falsely hold power, all of a sudden it's a crisis. It's racism. It's whatever other claim they make. Guys, just find your testicles, do the right thing, and start fighting to win. Then none of this will be in question. Again, we've been arresting people for the last year and actually executing what the voters demanded, and that is justice. That is mass deportations. We would not be in this position right now where voters are frustrated and are just going to sit on their hands and stay home. I mean, even with this advantage from this Supreme Court decision, I know I'm less concerned about holding the House. I mean, I don't think they were going to take the Senate anyway. I think that's all nonsense. But any seat that we won in 2024 with a margin of up to 3% is still in jeopardy. Turnout has been extremely low. A lot of especially younger voters are upset with what's going on. And this is a large coalition. It isn't just the mega base that got Trump into office. That's what people have to remember. This is a lot of those Maha voters. This is a lot of the libertarians. And again, you can scoff at it all you want. But, these are the people that got Trump across the finish line. It wasn't the mega base that was always there. It was the outreach to new voters, and a lot of them were upset because they're not getting what they're voting for. But they have nobody. You guys have nobody to blame but yourselves. It's Congress that's inaction is why people feel this way, and unfortunately, it's the DOJ that hasn't done their job in the last 12 months. It's only making that even worse.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to use our critical thinking, and we've got to not be silenced. I mean, look, in the scope of just this one broadcast, we've seen John Brennan and others saying there's the deep states in place. There's a whole resistance movement out there, and yet people are so gullible and willing to believe whatever the official narrative is. They're willing to believe people like Kemp, who put on a suit and look Republican. But if you look into Kemp, talk to Garland Favorito about Kemp down in Georgia,
Oh yeah,
what he's done, and people just keep swallowing the party line. It's time that Americans, well, subscribe to Freedom Talk magazine. We'll teach you how to think critically, but
yeah.
we've got to stop. We've got to stop just accepting what we're told. And I don't care if the person has an R or a D behind their name. What are they actually saying? What are they actually doing? If they're not getting it done, get them out of there.
Yeah. Well, I got one last story I want to sneak in just because it's funny and it'll just take a second. Mockery ensues after disgraced Virginia Attorney General makes this embarrassing mistake while begging the U.S. Supreme Court to reinstate the Democrats' rigged map. Well, J. Two Bullets Jones can't spell Virginia or senator or a number of other words. He also filed the documents with the wrong court. So, guys, this is what you voted for in Virginia. And you guys can deal with those consequences. I think it's hilarious. I also think it's funny that, they knew this was never going to pass, that this was never going to hold up, that this redistricting violated their own state laws. They couldn't be bothered to change them. And then you pile this embarrassment on top of that. But again, what their Democrats in Virginia are doing now, and they do have the votes for this. This will be constitutional if it goes through, since they control their House, the Senate, and the governor there. They are now going to lower the age for the Virginia Supreme Court to 54, so they can throw every single person off the court and replace them with just rubber stamp Democrats. So, guys, this is what you voted for in Virginia. You can deal with the consequences yourselves.
But did they vote for that?
Yeah, I think they probably did. I think you've had this flood of people from D.C. moving over there, and it's a bunch of blue-haired moonbats and wine moms. It was a close margin before when, what's his name won, the previous governor, it's the tip of my tongue, and Winsome Sears. I mean, those were razor-thin margins when they won, and we've had this huge shift of leftists going to D.C. and then moving just outside of that. So, yeah, I think... I haven't seen evidence. I've heard claims, but I haven't seen any evidence that this last race was stolen there, or nothing that's substantial.
Well, I got up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, apparently. Thanks for letting me rant, but these are things that are frustrating to a lot of Americans. Thank you for providing perspective on it, Michael. Your show should be watched by a whole hell of a lot of people, and I found you to be trustworthy and really on target with what you say. And again, thank you for having me on from time to time. I tend to bring sometimes in the voice of the people. I'm kind of echoing what I hear from other people, because not everybody out there is able to follow the machinations of Washington, D.C., and people have a lot of questions, and there's this huge gap between those people and the voters, and it's got to be fixed. People need answers. They really do.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. Always a pleasure to have you on, Kelly. And to our audience, thank you guys for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. And I'll be back tomorrow with even more.